Welcome to chapter 38. In this chapter, we are going to practice the nominative, accusative, and the dative in one sentence. So here we will find out how to distinguish or how to see and find out what a nominative, accusative, and dative object in one sentence is. So let's train it now. Willkommen zu Abschnitt 38. In diesem Abschnitt geht es um den Nominativ, Akkusativ und Dativ. Okay, now let's practice how to distinguish those three cases from each other if they are all three in one sentence. It is very common in German that we have all those three grammatical cases in one sentence, even all four cases. The other cases, which is missing the genitive, you will learn it in the A2 course. Okay, so it also even happens that we maybe have two accusative objects in a sentence or two dative objects. It is all possible. Okay, but if someone, let's say in an exam, you will have to mark now the nominative, accusative, and dative object. In this chapter, you will learn how to distinguish them from each other and how to find out which noun is in which grammatical case. As you remember, we have three different tools. We have, in order to find out or to structure in a grammatical case or a noun in a grammatical case, you need the preposition, for example. The prepositions help to distinguish those grammatical cases. The verbs, as you remember, there are certain accusative verbs or certain dative verbs, for example, and we have the case questions. The case questions are another tool in order to find out which noun needs to be put in which grammatical case. Now, for native speakers, if you're a native speaker, the dative does not exist. That's why it's very often a confusion for native English speakers in order to find out what the accusative and what the dative is. So that's why in this chapter we are going to practice now and using the case questions also, and also always mentioning the prepositions, for example, or the verbs that we are using. Okay, so we're going to look at that now very detailed. Die Fallfragen, that means case questions. And here we have a sentence. Now we're going to break down the sentence here. Patrick kauft einer Studentin ein Eis. It means Patrick buys an ice cream, let's say, to or for a student. Now we have a female student. Now we don't have the preposition für here because it's not necessary. Because etwas jemandem kaufen, like for somebody, you can just put the object of the person to whom you are buying something in the dative, and then you don't have to use the preposition für. Okay, Patrick kauft einer Studentin ein Eis. So let's start with the first case questions for the nominative case. The case question for the nominative case is wer oder was, who or what. Right now we're asking about the active part in the case question of the nominative case. Wer oder was kauft einer Studentin ein Eis? Right? Who or what is buying the female student an ice cream? The answer is Patrick. And Patrick here is the subject of the nominative object. He's the active part. The next case question is wen oder was kauft Patrick einer Studentin. Now in English it is also who or what, but it's about the passive part, the object that he's buying for the female student. Also wen oder was kauft er? Okay, what is he buying? The answer is ein Eis, the ice cream. So the ice cream is the object that he's buying. It's the accusative object here, because this is what he's buying. Whatever you buy needs to be put, the object that you buy always needs to be put in the accusative case. So the next sentence here, or the next question, the next case question is the dative case question, and it is wem oder was kauft Patrick ein Eis? It means whom or to whom. Okay, so to whom is he buying an ice cream? The answer is einer Studentin. So einer Studentin, it's the one who receives the ice cream. He's buying it to her or for her. Right? Whom is he buying an ice cream? Einer Studentin. So Studentin here is the dative object. And if you remember, the indefinite article for female nouns is einer in the dative case. Okay, so this is how you use the the case questions in order to figure out which noun is in which grammatical case. So you have to look at them closely, and if you, for example, don't have a preposition which is a kind of a signal word, right? So if you see mit, you know exactly that, you know directly that whatever comes after mit, the preposition mit, which means with, whatever comes right afterwards needs to be put in the dative. Now in this case here, in this sentence, we don't have a preposition, okay? We just have the verb kaufen. So whatever you buy, the object you buy needs to be put in the accusative, and to whom you buy something, the receiver is a dative object. So you have to break down the sentence and then use the case questions, for example, if you don't have a preposition, okay? And okay, so that was about the sentence. Now let's have a look at the next example. So the sentence here is on the top: Frau Bergmann kauft ein Geschenk für ihren Mann neben dem Kiosk. Okay, now here it's a little bit longer sentence. Okay, so we have here just to look at that directly. So we have the subject. This is the one who buys something. We have a verb. We have an object. Ein Geschenk means a present. Für ihren Mann, for her husband. And neben dem Kiosk, next to the kiosk. Now this is indication of place. Okay, so subject, verb. We have an accusative object. We have another accusative object. Okay, because this is the object that she's buying. And this is here the preposition für. So for whomever she buys something needs to be put in the accusative after the preposition für. And then we have an indication of place. So it means Frau Bergmann kauft ein Geschenk für ihren Mann neben dem Kiosk. In English, that is, Miss Bergman buys a present for her husband next to the kiosk. Okay? Or convenience store, it could also mean. So here, the first case question is, wer oder was kauft ein Geschenk für ihren Mann neben dem Kiosk? So who or what buys a present for her husband next to the kiosk? Right? We're asking about the active part here. So it is who or what in English. We're asking about the active part. The answer to that is Frau Bergmann. So Frau Bergmann, she is the nominative object or the subject in the sentence. Okay, Frau Bergmann. The next question is, wen oder was kauft Frau Bergmann für ihren Mann neben dem Kiosk? Now, who or what is she buying for her husband next to the kiosk? It's about the passive part, and now the object that she is buying, right? So whatever she buys needs to be put in the accusative, because that's the object that she buys. So the answer here is ein Geschenk, which is the accusative object. This is what she's buying. The next question is, für wen kauft Frau Bergmann ein Geschenk neben dem Kiosk? It means for whom, or for who is she buying? It would be actually for whom, I think, in English. But it's about the preposition here, right? Because für wen means for who, and this is a typical accusative preposition. So you know, for whomever she buys, the gift needs to be put in the dative. So here, for whom is she buying the present next to the kiosk? And the answer is für ihren Mann. Okay, it's the accusative object. As you see here, the preposition für goes always with the accusative case. And the next question here is, wo kauft Frau Bergmann ein Geschenk für ihren Mann? Right? It means where. Where is she buying a gift or a present for her husband? And here you have the preposition neben, which means next to. This belongs to the Wechselpräpositionen, they are called in German. So those prepositions which are about the location, they can stand in the dative or in the accusative object. It depends on whether the question is where is somebody going, where to somebody's going, or where somebody is going. Now this is for the A2 level already, but just for you to know, here neben, you use it, in this case you use it with the dative case, because now neben means next to, but there is no movement involved, so she's not going next to the kiosk, but she just bought it next to the kiosk. So the question is, where did she buy it next to the kiosk? I'm not asking where did she go to in order to buy it, right? So she said, here just says she bought it next to the kiosk. So that's why you have to use it in the dative case. So that's so the answer here is neben dem kiosk, it's the dative object. Also, you recognize it because the article is dem. The article dem just exists in the dative case. It's never in the accusative or in the nominative case. Neither it is in the genitive case, the one that we are going to learn in the A2 level. Okay, so as you see, we have a nominative object here, we have an accusative object, we have another accusative object because of the preposition für, and we have a dative object because of the preposition neben, but without asking where to, but just where. Okay, but also it is of course a help if you know the articles in the dative case, for example. In the accusative they are similar, except of the masculine one they are the same as in the nominative, so that would not be a big help unless the article is masculine. But here in the dative case, dem can just be in the dative case. There's no other possibility. Okay, so if you recognize the articles, that is also a great help. So let's have a look at the next slide. So in this sentence we have the following. Karl hat gestern einen Apfelsaft mit seinem Cousin getrunken. Alright, which means Karl has drunk an apple juice with his cousin yesterday. And let's have a look how we apply the case questions here. Wer hat gestern einen Apfelsaft mit seinem Cousin getrunken? Means who has drunk an apple juice with his cousin yesterday? Right? We're asking about the active part here. So the answer is Karl. Karl is the nominative object or the subject here in the sentence. Then the next case question, wen oder was hat Karl gestern mit seinem Cousin getrunken? Now this is the case question for the accusative, case. So the question is who or what, but we're asking about the passive part. In English it's again who or what, but in German now the question word changes. So who or what did he drink with his cousin? It's about the passive part. We're asking about the object that he drank with his cousin. So trinken, whatever you drink, needs to be put in the accusative object. Right? So einen Apfelsaft, the Apfelsaft is here the accusative object. You also recognize it by the word einen. Einen is the indefinite masculine article in the accusative case. So even if you don't apply the case questions, for example, just by seeing this indefinite article and knowing that it's the masculine definite article in the accusative case, this will also help you already. Okay, so Apfelsaft is an accusative object. The next one, mit wem hat Karl gestern einen Apfelsaft getrunken? And it means with whom. With whom did he drink the apple juice? So the preposition mit, or it's in English with, always goes with the dative. So with whomever he drank the apple juice needs to be put in the dative case. And or let's say whatever comes after mit, the preposition mit needs to be put in the dative. That's why it's mit seinem Cousin. Seinem, if you have studied the possessive pronouns, for example, you know seinem must be a dative possessive pronoun. It cannot be anything else. Okay, mit seinem Cousin, so the cousin here is the dative object because it's with his cousin. It comes cousin right after the preposition mit. Okay, so the next sentence, Alexandra glaubt der Nachbarin kein Wort, which means Alexandra doesn't believe or believes no word to her neighbor. Here, kein Wort, the negation, because we're negating the word completely. It's not even one word that she believes to the neighbor. So the case question for the nominative case here is, wer oder was glaubt der Nachbarin kein Wort? Right? Who or what doesn't or believes no word to the neighbor, doesn't believe a word to the neighbor. And it's the female neighbor, right? It's Nachbarin, it's the female neighbor. But here, since we use the verb glaube, which is a dative verb, to whomever you believe needs to be put in the dative. That's why the article die has changed to der here. Okay, but let's have a look at the next question. So, wen oder was glaubt Alexandra der Nachbarin? So, who or what is she believing the neighbor? It's the passive part, like the fact that she, like the thing that she's believing or not believing. So here it's kein Wort, no word. She doesn't believe no word. Okay, so it's here the accusative object. Das Wort, it's neutral in German. And then the next case question. That's the dative case question. Wem glaubt Alexandra kein Wort? Means whom doesn't she believe a word? Or to whom does she not believe? Glauben is a dative verb. Okay, so whomever you believe needs to be put in the dative case. So here the dative object is der Nachbarin, right? So die Nachbarin, which is actually female, the female neighbor, it changes to der, right? Because it's in the dative case now. Okay. Then the next sentence is, ich sehe dich in einem Auto. I see you in a car. Ich sehe dich in einem Auto. So let's break the sentence down. Wer oder was sieht dich in einem Auto? So who or what? Or let's say who is seeing you in a car? And we're asking about the active part here. So it is ich, and ich is the nominative object or the subject of the sentence. It's the active part. Then the accusative question is, wen oder was sehe ich in einem Auto? So who or what do I see in a car? Now it's about the passive part. Who's being seen? Who is the one who I see? So I see you, and this is dich in the German, and it's the accusative object here. Okay, so whoever you see is an accusative object, because sehen is an accusative verb. Then the next sentence, wo sehe ich dich? So where do I see you? And in einem Auto, this is the dative object here, the car, because in belongs to the Wechselpräpositionen. That are the prepositions that work with accusative and dative, just as we had the example with neben at the beginning of this chapter. So here the question is whether you want to go, whether you're asking where do I see you or where to do I see you. Where to would be with a movement, but here I'm just seeing you in a car. So in this case, you have to use it in the dative case. In the A2 level, you will learn it much more in depth with those Wechselpräpositionen, as we call them. Okay, so in einem Auto, this is the dative object. Also, you see the indefinite article einem. It must be dative because it has an M at the end. Okay, so that would also be a hint for you. Okay, so that was the chapter about practicing several grammatical cases in one sentence. So please keep in mind, you have to learn the verbs. There are typical dative and typical accusative verbs. Then you have to know the prepositions. Okay, the typical accusative, the typical dative prepositions. In the A2 level, you will learn the prepositions that work in both cases and how you apply them, when they are in the accusative, when in the dative. And then you have the case questions. Okay, and of course also the articles. If you see dem, einem, you know it must be dative. So please apply those three rules. Okay, the verbs, the prepositions, and the case questions. They will be a big help for you in order to distinguish those four, or here until now in the A1 level, those three different grammatical cases. Okay, so please watch this video several times if possible. Maybe you can take a book or an article and choose a sentence and then trying to break down the sentence, asking or using all those three tools that we have learned in this course, just to get a practice and just to become more familiar with the grammatical cases in German. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I hope now you can distinguish the three grammatical cases better from each other. But of course you would have to practice, especially if you're a native English speaker where the dative does not exist. So it would be good if you practice a little bit more. Then bis bald und bis zum nächsten Abschnitt. Tschüss!